Ah, Valentine's Day. A day of love and romance. A day for fine dining, overpriced gifts, cheap cards, bad chocolates, and dead flowers. In celebration this past weekend, I took the missus to see Madam Webb, and boy, let me tell ya, nothing gets the ladies going quite like an $80 million Hollywood film that looks like it was made in a week by teenagers with head injuries. Under the influence of a heavily misused plot device, there is something exquisitely schizophrenic about Madam Webb, with many scenes repeating themselves and making it somewhat hard to follow, and I am just as surprised as you that my feeble water brain was able to put together some of the pieces. But I'll be quite honest with you guys, I sleepwalked through a lot of this film, just like all the actors did, so I will be using a plot synopsis that I found on Wikipedia as a rough guide to help defragment my trauma, and I will fill in the bits and pieces that my brain allows me to remember. Make no mistake, I witnessed this movie in all of its glory, but the logical side of my brain couldn't bring itself to stay awake lest it suffer some form of extreme cognitive dissonance. So rip open that cheap Whitman sampler, because you're going to need an emotional crutch as we basically make fun of the royal slop fest that is Madam Webb right now on Ugly Review. Our story begins in 1973 in the jungles of Peru, where a very, very pregnant woman named Constance Webb is hunting for a very rare spider due to the incredible healing properties of its venom. After finding the arachnid, her research partner Ezekiel betrays her and the rest of the crew as he wants to claim the spider's powerful venom for himself in order to gain How this works is never, ever, ever explained, so they must assume that you read the comics, even though it's glaringly obvious no member of this production has done so themselves. As Ezekiel is ripping the spider out of her sweaty pregante hands, he shoots Constance and leaves her for dead. Why a pregnant woman didn't just hand over the loot while a madman holds her at gunpoint, the world will never know. Just then, a bunch of rare Peruvian Spider-Men awkwardly descend from the trees and take Constance to a magical pool of glowing water and allow one of the rare spiders to bite her in an attempt to save her life, but to no avail. Before passing, she is able to give birth to her daughter, Cassandra, and one of the Peruvian Spider-Men tells Constance that when her daughter grows up, she will be looking for answers, and these men will be here when she is ready. How will she know when she is ready? I couldn't tell you, because the movie never tells the audience. It must be that magical female intuition. One thing that struck me within the first few minutes of this film is the appalling cinematography, as they try to use the same camera effect that District 9 used so well. You know, the one that makes it look like someone is recording all the action? It's not exactly shaky cam, it just has an odd wobble and zoom effect to make you think someone is actively filming in-world. In District 9, it is very effective because that plays into the narrative of the film, while here it just looks like someone is having a seizure. It's off-putting, to say the least. We cut to 20 years later in New York City, where Cassie is working as a paramedic and is living in Queens with a cat. I have no idea how the Peruvian Spider-Man got her to the States and into foster care, because it's never addressed. So if you have a fun theory, post it in the comments below. Well, this should be good. We are introduced to Cassie and her co-worker Uncle Ben in a hospital as a small boy attempts to give Cassie a hand-drawn thank you card for saving his sister's life. Because she is a cold, heartless bitch, Cassie rejects the card from the boy. However, Ben forces her to accept. She then criticizes the quality of the paper on which the drawing was made. Rejecting kind gestures from small children is probably not the best way to produce sympathy for your protagonist, but it definitely establishes Cassie's attitude for the film. Cassie and Uncle Ben answer a call to a car accident, and after safely removing a man from the overturned vehicle, it falls off the bridge, taking Cassie along for the ride. Ben rescues her from the water, and while checking her vitals, Cassie begins having visions of the future as the impact from the fall has triggered some dormant abilities that were passed on through the venom that was given to her mother. These are similar abilities to Ezekiel, although he also gained superhuman strength and the ability to climb walls. Honestly surprised the media didn't call that one out for inequality and sexism. Meanwhile, an older Ezekiel attends the opera so that he can swoon an NSA agent in order to gain access to their advanced surveillance systems. He must do so as he has been having visions of his own that show 3 teenage girls, Julia, Anya, and Maddie, are coming to kill him. I really wish I could tell you why they were trying to kill him, but the only thing that Ezekiel ever says is that they are coming to destroy everything he has worked so hard for and built for himself. I really wish I could tell you what he has built and how he has gained all of his power and influence, but the movie never tells us. Seriously, he is just random rich bad guy in superhero movie, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if ChatGPT told the writers that they need to add a random rich bad guy to their superhero movie, so behold Ezekiel! Additionally, the only thing they did to age him up is add a few gray Tulsi Gabbard streaks to his hair. Yes, the effort in this film is somewhat wanting. Cassie and Uncle Ben head to a cookout at the home of their friend O'Neill, a police officer who is played by Mike Epps. The very first thing that Cassie does when she arrives is criticize O'Neill's handling of the grill, telling him that he shouldn't press the burgers, because that's just what every good host wants. Someone who criticizes the free food and drink you are giving them. Get the fuck out. O'Neill's wife then comes over to ask if he is pressing the burgers again, and Cassie says, "Yes, and now they're ruined." No, seriously, get the fuck out. A call comes in during the party, and everyone rushes to a nearby fireworks factory that is on fire and out of control. During the scene, Cassie has a vision that O'Neill will drive off in an ambulance, be hit by a truck, and die. As the events begin to unfold, she pleads with O'Neill to let her drive, but alas, he convinces her otherwise and begins to drive towards the river. Yep, he just goes through a stop sign and heads straight for the river. For reasons. As he passes through the stop sign, he is T-boned by a large truck and Cassie heads towards the accident. When she gets there, the very first thing she does is rip him out of the truck and begin chest compressions. She doesn't check if he is breathing, she doesn't check if there are any bones poking through the skin, and she probably should have, because he ends up dying of a huge gash in his gut. Maybe if you hadn't started tenderizing him like a veal cutlet, the blood wouldn't have been shoved out of that gash and he might have stood a chance. Eventually, we find ourselves at Grand Central Station as Cassie boards a train on her way to O'Neill's funeral, and wouldn't you know it that all 3 teenage girls conveniently board the train as well. It's hard to tell if all the plot conveniences and contrivances were intentionally put into this film or if the people making it were just far too dumb to notice, but it's probably both. Additionally, I am not going to waste my time or yours by going over every single stupid thing in this movie, as it would be an EFAP-style presentation, and as I mentioned in the Rebel Moon video, I have swore off drinking, and I don't need a reason to start again. Ezekiel tracks them down, and instead of easily killing all 4, he just kills a few cops and lets the girls get away.
Of course!
They steal a taxi, and Cassie drives the 3 teenage girls to the middle of the woods and leaves them there while she goes back to her apartment to read her mom's old notes to see if she can find any information on Ezekiel. Are you telling me that you had all of your mom's old papers, journals, photos for years, and you are just now thinking to look through them? Yes, that's exactly what the movie tells you. No, I'm not kidding. Meanwhile, back in the middle of nowhere, the 3 annoying teens have an argument about being hangry and decide to do dumb stuff, even though Cassie specifically told them, don't do dumb stuff. Yes, that line is in this movie. The dumb stuff equates to them walking to a diner about half-mile down the road, eating a toxic amount of food, and dancing on a table for some teenage boys. Remember that there is a random, rich superhero movie bad guy looking to kill them, yet here they are, drawing attention to themselves like, I suppose like 3 teenage girls. That adds up. That adds up. As the girls continue their song and dance, a trucker sitting in the diner recognizes them because there is a picture from the subway fight on the front page of the paper he is currently reading. Let me say that again. This random guy sitting at a highway diner well outside the city of New York is reading a newspaper that has a photo of the girls in Grand Central Station that must have been taken not 4 hours ago. I honestly have no funny quip or comment for this. I'm telling you, I am just flabbergasted this is here. I have no idea what to say. I really, really don't. The random trucker guy calls the cops, and the call is intercepted by Ezekiel's assistant, who relays him the information. Cassie has a vision that Ezekiel knows where the girls are and hops in the damaged New York City cab and speeds towards the diner. We are given a scene of Cassie's premonition that shows Ezekiel killing all 4 women, but before he can follow through with all the murdering, the taxicab crashes through the front of the diner, striking Ezekiel and allowing the girls a chance to escape. As they are getting into the cab, Ezekiel reaches up and grabs Cassie's arm, but she manages to shake him off by aggressively opening the door. One of the powers Ezekiel possesses is the ability to inject people with a deadly poison simply by holding on to their skin. He even goes so far as to say that even a slight grip and a little poison is enough to kill someone, but this time he must have forgotten to activate his poison glands or some shit. That, or Cassie is immune to the poison because she has the same powers? That might make sense, but the movie never addresses it. Whatever. Fuck it! She takes the girls back to Queens, where they rent a shitty motel room and all have a heart-to-heart because none of them have any parents in their lives. They all give sob stories, but honestly, the only one I can remember is the Latino girl because her dad was deported, and now she is living by herself and has to lay low for another 2 years before she legally becomes an adult and can be on her own. Did you hear what I said?
Did you hear what I said?
Did you hear what I said? Are you telling me that the federal government knew where you lived and kicked in your door to deport your dad, but left you there all by yourself? Are you kidding me? Am I supposed to believe this? Jesus fuck. There is also this very strange moment where Cassie teaches the girls to give chest compressions, stating that this is what you do anytime someone goes into cardiac arrest. All the girls take turns learning to work as a team, but honestly, it just looks like they're giving really bad hand jobs. All of these women are over 21 in real life, but it's still kind of weird. The next day, Cassie takes the 3 teenage girls to stay with her work associate Uncle Ben and Ben's pregnant sister-in-law Mary while she flies to Peru to look for answers. Seriously, she just drops them off, then she is magically on a single-engine Cessna to South America. I beg of you, please don't think about it that hard. The writers and director didn't bother, so why should you? Remember that rare Peruvian Spider-Man who told Cassie's mom that he would be waiting to give her answers whenever Cassie returns? Well, he's still here waiting for her, apparently in the exact same spot. Except this time he is dressed as a yoga practitioner, and I am not kidding. The Wikipedia on this says that he was anticipating her arrival, but fuck me if anyone ever tells us how or why. He takes her into the cave with the spooky magic water and shoves her soul out of her body and into the pool, which enables her to travel back in time to spy on her mom. During this scene, the flashback includes her mom in the jungle in 1973 complaining about being pregnant, which is definitely something that all pregnant women do, but Cassie just can't deal with this epic trauma and asks, "Why did you hate me?" contributing well to the idea that she's an insufferable bitch. She then sees her mom at the doctor, and we learn that her mother was looking for the rare spider venom to save her baby from an incurable disease. Cassie apologizes, and the flashback vision of her mother turns to give Cassie a hug, because that's something they can totally do, but it's never explained. And then Cassie absorbs the vision of her pregnant mother from 1973, which enables her to phase into her final godlike form, where she can experience a plane of higher consciousness where all living things are connected and where every possible future can be seen. At least that's what this Wikipedia says, which, sure, whatever the fuck. I don't really know or care, do you? No, I didn't think so. Back home, Uncle Ben's pregnant sister-in-law, Mary, goes into labor, and this is introduced by having her walk into the frame and stating she doesn't know if her water just broke or if she peed herself. Well, I'm no OBGYN, ladies, and no, men can't get pregnant, but I'm pretty damn sure any normal and sober human being would be able to tell the difference. Ben, Mary, and the 3 teenagers rush to the hospital where their faces are picked up by cameras and sent to the NSA surveillance program, and Ezekiel is able to pick up this information and makes for the hospital. Cassie shows up just in the nick of time and is able to help the girls get away by stealing an ambulance. Headed towards the big finale, Cassie cooks up a plan to lure Ezekiel to the fireworks factory from earlier in the film, make for the rooftop, and call in a medical helicopter for an emergency evacuation, which, sure, fine. We've made it this far, why not? Ezekiel is hot on their tail, but before he arrives, the girls set several traps using the fireworks inside the fireworks factory. Yes, this fireworks factory that was earlier engulfed with flames and surrounded by first responders still has all of its payload within. Ezekiel eventually shows up, and the girls head for the stairs, setting off multiple fireworks as they run, with 1 or 2 knocking Ezekiel around the scene. When they start running towards the helicopter, fireworks begin bursting through the top of the building. Yes, fireworks that you or I could purchase and set off in our backyard begin tearing through steel, brick, and mortar. These aren't fireworks. This is artillery. One of the artillery shells fires towards Ezekiel, and he deflects it towards the helicopter, which crashes to Earth. Or the water. You know what? I honestly can't remember if it lands in the river or on dry land. I really can't. Everyone begins crawling all over a giant Pepsi sign on top of the fireworks factory in one of the most blatant examples of product placement you will ever see, and the sign gets torn apart by all of the artillery shells, and everyone begins falling, but obviously catches themselves on a ledge or a bar or something, like, oh no, oh my god, please help, I'm falling, Cassie, help, oh no, help. So Cassie begins using her powers and taps into the Web of Life, which triggers a series of CGI spider web string mind connection things that find the girls and guide them to safety. Cassie then lures Ezekiel into a trap that sees part of the giant Pepsi sign fall on him and crush him, but just before she does, Cassie gives us a great action movie one-liner when she says, "The girls were never your future. I was." And yep, honestly, I don't know what to say. He never during this film has any visions of her. And honestly, I don't think I could do the mental gymnastics to connect this to anything else in the movie if I tried. As the sign crashes down, Cassie is thrown into the river and begins sinking, and as she does, one of the artillery shells fires into the water and smacks her in the face with a big ol' thud and immediately blinds her. She is taken to the same hospital as Ben and Mary, where Mary is giving birth to a son who can't be named because of copyright law. When Cassie wakes up, she discovers that she is also paralyzed from the waist down because this is an origin story, and she needs to match the character from the comics who doesn't have an origin story, so here it is, enjoy. Cassie agrees to take in the three girls, and the final scene shows them all living together in an apartment, and we get a quick glimpse of the girls in the future fighting crime in their Spider-Woman suits, with Cassie wearing Macho Man Randy Savage glasses, and yes, the only time we ever see any of the women in their superhero outfits is during her visions. Just for good measure, we get one more swift kick in the balls, as Cassie says, "You know the best thing about the future? It hasn't happened yet." And the masterfully incompetent Madam Webb has come to a merciful end. Has your body ever been in so much physical pain that the only thing you could do is laugh? Mine sure has. While watching Madam Webb, you have the same visceral reaction. If you actually try to make sense of it all, your brain will incur actual physical damage and smooth out a little bit. Somewhere in the back. Right here. You don't need that. I don't think. Seriously, who did this? Why did you do it? S.J. Clarkson, who are you? What have you done? What? This is your first movie? Who put you in charge? Why? According to this Google search, one of the shows you worked on was made in zero. What is it with all of these massive Hollywood studios giving tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to people with little to no experience with big budget films? This is obviously the result of the insane diversity and inclusion standards that have recently come to light thanks to leaks from Disney and Amazon, and has seen Disney on the business end of several high-profile lawsuits. And if these two companies are doing it, you had better believe that everyone is doing it. Do these companies honestly believe they can continue down this calamitous path? This movie stands to lose at least $100 million, and companies that shed that kind of money will not be in business or won't resemble the same business in a few years. Maybe the BlackRock ESG money is that good, but I suppose if it were, Hollywood wouldn't have to lay off thousands of people. That being said, there's really nothing woke about this film. It's just very, 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 very poorly constructed. My God. Seriously, there is nothing good about this movie, and of particularly bad note are the directing, writing, acting, editing, and sound. My God, the sound. The voice syncing is so terrible, and it really stands out on Ezekiel. I'm sorry, guys, but I don't have the time to go into a deep technical analysis of this film. I'm going to be 40 in May. I'm dying, and honestly, I don't want this movie to be the last thing I think about before I go. Nobody in this movie gave a damn. No one, not a soul. Dakota Johnson recently came out and said that things got so bad that the script underwent massive rewrites that she can't even talk about and were vastly different from what had been initially pitched to her. She immediately fired her agent after signing on to this movie and then finding out it wasn't in the MCU. She has vehemently denied the connection, but as was pointed out by RK Outpost, both her and Sydney Sweeney tagged themselves in the MCU after signing on to this production. And as of February 16th, Dakota has stated she hasn't even watched the film and probably won't. This shitstorm was destined to fail from the start, and yet they sallied forth with all the disconnected gusto of a mentally unstable person. It begs the question, why they didn't just shelf it and take a tax credit like WB did with Batgirl. And it begs an even bigger question. How bad was Batgirl? I give this movie, you know what? I give this movie a 2 out of 10. I haven't laughed like this at a movie in a good long while, and I appreciate that. Is it worth $9? God, no. In fact, on the way out, my wife overheard a guy say, "Well, that's $9 I'll never get back." Yeah, you and all the other single losers who didn't use gift cards. Happy Valentine's Day, friend.